Get that piece of junk off my street before I have it crushed for scrap. You glorified ditch digger. Victoria Langford screamed, her $2,000 light blue power suit gleaming under the Texas sun as she jabbed a manicured finger inches from my chest. She saw the dust on my boots, the faded Serenity Pines HOA sticker someone had slapped on my truck like a scarlet letter, and decided I was trash. An outsider who'd wandered into her manicured kingdom by mistake. What she didn't see was the geotechnical engineer who'd spent 15 years mapping flood zones for the Army Corps of Engineers, the man who just inherited his late uncle's modest ranch-style home after the old man's heart gave out from years of her friendly citations. And that rusty heap she wanted scrapped? It carried $500,000 in federal surveying gear, laser total stations, GPS units, the kind of equipment that doesn't care about HOA bylaws. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply reached into the ignition, pulled the key, and dropped it into the palm of the nervous security guard hovering behind her like a well-paid lapdog. Careful with the suspension, I said, voice low and even, the same tone I used on shaky levees back in Louisiana. That truck belongs to the United States government. Victoria let out a laugh sharp enough to shatter crystal. She waved a dismissive hand at her clipboard-wielding entourage of 3 other perfectly coiffed ladies who nodded in perfect sync like they'd practiced in the mirror. Oh honey, in Serenity Pines we don't do federal, we do fabulous. Tow it, Derek. The guard hesitated, eyes darting between the HOA president who signed his checks and the calm stranger who just surrendered $500,000 in equipment without blinking. He chose the paycheck. I watched my truck disappear around the bend of the palm-lined street that cut through the heart of the subdivision. Then I turned and walked straight toward the edge of her property line, the one she claimed extended 6 inches into my uncle's old backyard. She followed, heels clicking like tiny gavels. I'm issuing you a citation for visual nuisance and unauthorized parking, she announced, shoving a pink paper into my hand. $5,000 payable immediately, or we place a lien on that little shack you're squatting in. I took the paper, folded it neatly, and slipped it into my shirt pocket right next to my mechanical pencil. You built your new pool deck over a Class 1 stormwater basin, I said quietly, eyes on the shimmering blue rectangle behind her glass railing. The subsidence is already starting. Give it 6 months and that pretty patio will crack like cheap drywall. This is nonsense, she scoffed, adjusting her pearl necklace. My engineers are the best in the state. Now get off my property before I have you arrested for trespassing. I tipped my worn ball cap, turned, and began the long walk back to Uncle Henry's house, the one with the faded paint and the single American flag he'd flown until the day the stress stopped his heart. Patience is a weapon, I reminded myself. People like Victoria expect screaming. They expect lawyers and shouting matches and dramatic exits. They have no idea what to do with silence. The house was only half a mile away, tucked behind a row of perfectly trimmed hedges that Uncle Henry had refused to replace with the HOA-approved boxwoods. When I stepped inside, the air smelled of old paper and the faint ghost of his pipe tobacco. I locked the door even though a lock meant nothing here if Victoria really wanted in. The sun dipped low, painting long shadows across the neighborhood that looked so peaceful from the outside. White picket fences, sparkling pools, zero tolerance for dandelions. But underneath, everything was shifting. At 7 p.m., the lights flickered and died. I tried the switch. Nothing. Breaker box dead. I looked out the window and saw Victoria's mansion blazing like a cruise ship on the hill. They cut the power. Level 2 isolation. Classic HOA move. They thought darkness and discomfort would break me, make me sign the quitclaim deed they'd shoved in my mailbox yesterday. They had no idea I'd spent months in places where the only light came from headlamps, and the only power was what you carried on your back. I grabbed a heavy-duty flashlight and my coat. I wasn't going to sit there waiting for their next move. I needed to clear my head, and I needed to visit the one living thing on this block that had been here longer than Victoria's ego, the old sentinel oak in the far corner of my backyard, the one the HOA had been trying to declare a hazard for months. Uncle Henry used to say it was the only honest thing left in Serenity Pines. I walked through the tall grass, flashlight beam cutting the darkness. The air smelled of night-blooming jasmine and something sharper, wet earth that shouldn't be that wet in a drought. When the tree came into view, its massive roots snaked across the ground like veins. I knelt, shining the light low. That's when I saw it. A fresh scar on the bark, low and deliberate, shaped like an arrow pointing straight down into a hollow choked with moss. Uncle Henry never carved trees. Unless he was leaving a sign. I dug with my hands, fingers brushing cold metal. An old military ammo can, the kind he kept important papers in. Pried it open. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a leather notebook and a brittle carbon copy. The paper had numbers: 441.2 feet. Federal line 2019 void. To anyone else, gibberish. To a geotechnical engineer who specialized in subsidence? Confession. Victoria's mansion, Saturday, February 8, feet below the historic flood line. Someone had altered the survey data, turning protected wetland into buildable paradise. They'd erased the water to build a castle. And Uncle Henry had hidden the proof right here. Holy hell, I whispered. You knew, old man. You knew, and they stressed you to death for it. I opened the notebook. 40 years of water table readings proving the soil beneath her palace was saturated sponge, not bedrock. The new pool addition had made it worse. Diverted stormwater, illegal fill dirt, the works. This wasn't just an HOA bully. This was federal fraud. Clean Water Act violations. The kind that could send the whole board to prison. I clutched the box and ran back to the house, satellite laptop already booting on my backup power bank. USGS data confirmed it. Her property glowed red on the raw flood maps. The county version had been miraculously edited to carve her out. Nature doesn't make straight lines like that. Corruption does. The next morning the sun rose blood red over the subdivision. I was drinking black coffee when I heard the rumble. Diesel engines, heavy machinery. I stepped onto the porch. A yellow backhoe was tearing up the common area path, flanked by 2 HOA pickup trucks. They were heading straight for the Sentinel Oak. Victoria stood by one truck in a pristine white windbreaker, arms crossed, smirk in place. Exactly, I muttered, grabbing my coat and the carbon copy. You want to erase the evidence. I sprinted across the lawn, lungs burning, and planted myself in front of the machine. The driver slammed the brakes, blade hovering 10 feet away. Move, he shouted. You're not touching this tree, I said, voice steady. Victoria sauntered over, heels sinking slightly. Mr. Brooks, she purred, we're conducting necessary landscaping. The tree is diseased. It poses a risk to community infrastructure. Diseased? I laughed, harsh and short. That tree's healthier than your ethics, Victoria. And you're not here for landscaping. You're here because you know what's under it. Her eyes narrowed, just a flicker. I don't know what you're talking about. But you are obstructing authorized work. I have a permit right here. She waved another forged paper. And I have this, I said, holding the carbon copy high. Elevation 441.2. Federal line 2019. Void. She went still. Color drained from her face beneath the perfect makeup. She knew those numbers. She'd paid a fortune to bury them. You built your palace in a bathtub, Victoria, I said, stepping closer. Paid off the county to say it was dry land. That's not a zoning violation. That's violating the Clean Water Act. Federal jurisdiction. This is nonsense, she whispered, venom gone, replaced by fear. You're a crazy man with a piece of trash paper. Then run me over, I said, gesturing at the backhoe. Bury me with the tree. But you can't bribe gravity. And you sure as hell can't hide from the Army Corps once they have these coordinates. She stared, chest heaving. Calculating. If she hurt me now with proof in the open, game over. She snapped at the driver. Pull back. But Mrs. Langford. Pull back. She screamed, composure cracking. She turned to me, eyes cold. You think a few numbers will save you? You have no idea who you're dealing with. You're one man against a machine that runs this entire county. You won't survive the week. I don't need to survive the week, I said. I just need to survive until the mail runs. She stormed off, door slamming so hard the truck rocked. The convoy reversed, dust choking the air. I stood guard under the oak until they were gone, then let my knees buckle. I had won the skirmish. The war was just starting. I needed backup. I remembered Uncle Henry mentioning Jackson Reed, an old county drainage engineer fired for insubordination, living in a trailer park 2 towns over. No phone, no truck. I'd have to walk through the woods to avoid the HOA patrols I knew were coming. The hike took 4 hours. I moved through underbrush, dodging ATVs with Victoria's private security sweeping the perimeter. I reached Jackson's trailer past midnight. Knocked 3 times. Shotgun racked inside. Go away. Jackson, I said low. I'm Henry Brooks' nephew. I have the numbers. 441.2. Door flew open. Gaunt man, stained undershirt, 12 gauge lowered slowly. Get in before they see you. Inside was a shrine to maps, blueprints, old microfiche. I told him not to fight alone, Jackson muttered. That woman has the county commissioner in her pocket and the planning director on speed dial. I found the void line, I said, setting up my laptop. Here's the proof. Jackson froze, then whistled low. He actually saved it. That box is the smoking gun. I refused to sign the new survey. That's why they fired me. They brought in an out-of-state guy. Look at the digital signature. He pulled up the forged permit. Notary stamp. Leonard Langford, her husband, the county judge. Conflict of interest, fraud, conspiracy. And the filled dirt? They backfilled the entire basin to build her pool. That's why every foundation on the block is cracking, including yours. If we prove the fill, we bring in EPA and Corps, I said. County can't touch them. I used his hardline to call Commander Hayes at the Corps. Code 404 violation. Massive scale. Need inspection team and marshals. Locals are hostile. They're coming, I told Jackson. 24 hours. Now we stay alive. Tires crunched outside. Black SUV, Victoria's goons sweeping associates. We slipped out the back, heading straight for the lion's den. Not the cabin. The mansion. Jackson grinned in the dark. They'll expect us at your place. They won't expect us under hers. We crawled through wet grass toward her rose garden, avoiding motion sensors. The foundation wept moisture, slow dark stains betraying the lie. Jackson found the old service hatch he'd installed years ago before she paved over everything. We dropped into the crawl space ankle deep in mud. The ground wasn't bedrock. It was swamp. Steel pilings corroding. PVC bypass pipe under pressure diverted the stormwater. Jackson gripped the valve wheel. On 3. We heaved. Metal screeched. Water roared back to its natural course. The ground trembled. Sensors would trip in Denver within minutes. We scrambled out, retreating to the tree line as the mansion lights stayed blissfully on. We made it back to my house before dawn. I shaved, put on my dress uniform. Major Brooks, inactive reserve, fully authorized for environmental crisis. Jackson sipped coffee. You look like the Grim Reaper of paperwork. That's exactly what I am. The USGS alert should be hitting now. The Serenity Pines Community Center was all vaulted ceilings and marble. Coffee bar costing more than Uncle Henry's entire house. 50 homeowners sat terrified by rumors of lawsuits. On stage stood Victoria in her signature light blue suit, microphone in hand, screen behind her showing rising property values. These rumors are nothing but the jealous ramblings of a failed man, she soothed. Mr. Brooks is a transient with a vendetta. He has no claim here. I've spoken to the sheriff, we have a restraining order in process. By tomorrow he'll be gone. The double doors opened. Heels of my dress shoes clicked on marble like a metronome. Heads turned. Whispers exploded. I wasn't the dusty guy they'd seen towed yesterday. I was federal. Security. Victoria barked. Remove this man. 2 guards stepped forward. I held up the gold badge. Federal officer. Interfering with an ongoing environmental investigation is a felony. Mandatory 5 years. Step aside. They froze. I walked up the aisle, climbed the stage. Victoria clutched the mic like a weapon. This is private property. This is a federal crime scene, I corrected. I plugged in the flash drive. The screen switched to 3D topography. Red flood zone pulsing exactly under her mansion and half the neighborhood. What you're looking at is the hydrological reality of Serenity Pines, I told the crowd. You were told solid bedrock. You were lied to. Chaos. Victoria clawed at the console. He's faking it. Turn it off. I caught her wrist gently but firmly. Don't touch that. Every second adds evidence tampering to your indictment. She yanked away, trembling. My husband is the judge. He'll bury you. Your husband, I said, clicking the remote, is currently explaining to the FBI why his notary stamp is on a forged survey. Split screen. Forged permit with Leonard's stamp versus original void line. Below it, $50,000 transfer from HOA account to the commissioner's shell company. The room erupted. As if on cue, a deep groan echoed through the building, structural steel twisting. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Get out, I said calmly. Now. Panic wasn't screaming. It was a stampede of Lululemon and golf shirts realizing their life savings sat on quicksand. Homeowners rushed exits. Victoria stood frozen, watching her kingdom empty. You did this, she whispered. You ruined everything. You ruined it the day you decided the rules didn't apply to you, I replied. Blue and red lights painted the walls. Not sheriff black SUVs, EPA and U.S. Marshals. Commander Hayes led them. Victoria Langford, you are under arrest for Clean Water Act violations, wire fraud, conspiracy, and bribery. She stumbled as cuffs clicked. The light blue suit that once screamed untouchable power now looked like a cheap costume. As they led her away, she stopped, eyes finally seeing me. Not the ditch digger, not the drifter, but the stone she'd broken herself on. This neighborhood is worthless without us, she spat. This neighborhood was perfect before you touched it, I said. I walked out into fresh air. Jackson waited by the entrance, new truck gleaming with whistleblower reward money. Show's over? Just the first act, I said. Now comes the cleanup. The federal investigation took 6 months. Victoria and Leonard faced 10 years minimum. No parole for environmental crimes. Her mansion was condemned in a week. Foundation shifted 4 inches overnight. Demolition crews used the same backhoe that once threatened the oak. Homeowners received restitution from seized accounts. Most moved, happy to leave the cursed subdivision. I worked with the state to turn the affected land into the Henry Brooks Wetland Preserve. Protected forever, no HOA could touch it. I kept only Uncle Henry's house and the Sentinel Oak. One evening a year later I sat beneath that tree, sun setting golden through the leaves. The scar where I'd found the box had faded gray. Jackson pulled up with 2 beers. Quiet tonight, he said. The way it should be. You know, he added, people say you can't fight City Hall. Can't beat money. I took a sip. But physics doesn't listen to people. And neither does the truth. We sat as stars came out. The land breathed around us, wetlands returning, frogs singing, herons gliding in. Justice isn't about winning or money. It's about refusing to let something become right just because it's powerful. It's drawing a line in the dirt and saying no further. The old Sentinel waited a lifetime to tell the truth. Now tell me in the comments, was I wrong for fighting back with silence and science? Or was Victoria the real criminal all along, hiding behind HOA rules and a smile? Who was truly in the wrong here? Drop a balance scale if you're standing with the truth. See you in the next one.